Hi, and welcome to the notes on the phases of the moon and also the moon in general. So today we're going to talk about, the patterns of the moon throughout the month, which you guys know from going outside, observing it. So we're going to take a look at that today. So how do the phases of the moon occur, and what are the general patterns with it? So how does the moon move, first of all? So basically the moon revolves around the Earth, and it takes almost a month. It's actually 27.3 days exactly to fully orbit the Earth. The moon phases aren't exactly that. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Also remember, the Earth revolves around the Sun. It takes 365.26 days, and that's why you see again the moon changes about on a monthly basis. All right, in our sky, the moon rises in the east, sets in the west in general. So if you track it across the sky, that's what you're going to see. It's going to make an arc across the sky, just like the sun does. And also, 50 minutes later each day, the moon rise and moon set varies by. So you could actually track it. They actually have it in the online or in the paper every day, telling you time of moon rise and moon set. Okay, why do we see the moon in our sky? Well, it's getting light from the sun. So just like the Earth is half lit up, half in darkness. The moon is the same way. And then as it revolves, we see a different lit portion of the moon. And that's what the moon phases are. So why do we sometimes only see parts of the moon? Its position is changing compared to the sun and Earth. And that's why we see different amounts of lighted moon from Earth's perspective. The moon revolves around the Earth, causing the moon phases to occur. All right, and there's a YouTube link I can give you. You guys can actually look at it in the description, all right, down below. Moon phase patterns, they change in amount of lit surface throughout the month, basically. And exactly, if you want to track the amount of time it takes to go through a full cycle of the moon phases, it's almost a month. It's 29 and a half days exactly. So between, if you go start at a new moon and go to the next new moon, that's what it is exactly. Or a full moon to a full moon, as long as the same phase in the next month. It's a cyclic change. It's a predictable change that occurs in a pattern. So we can actually predict it months in advance because of that. Also, just a couple little things to remember. Left side lit last. Because last quarter, first quarter, a lot of people mix up. Last quarter is going to be left side lit up. Also, wax on, wane off, because there are terms waxing and waning. So just remember that. And then you won't mix up the two. So waxing means to get lighter, and then waning means to actually start fading away. And here it is. So it takes 29 and a half days to get around through the moon phases, and the position shown, so position 1, you see the dark side of the moon is facing the Earth. So what we see is what's called a new moon. So what that looks like, you wouldn't see it. That's why I don't have a picture for it. You would just see the dark portion of the moon. You might see a little slight glow in the sky, but generally you don't see the moon during a new moon because the sun, again, is hitting the backside of the moon directly. Waxing crescent, if you draw a line through the orbit, you'll notice right here we're seeing this side lit up right here. Okay, so that's a crescent. Okay, it's only part of it, a little tiny bit on the right side that we see lit up from our perspective. The next one is first quarter, and you see half of the moon lit up. It's not called a half moon, it's called a quarter moon because you're seeing a quarter of the lit surface. The other quarter that's lit up is facing away from the Earth. That's why it's named that way. And again, it's the right side lit up during the first quarter. And then gibbous, you can notice it's almost a full moon, but there's this little sliver of black on the left side. The rest is lit up on the right. Okay, and that's what we call waxing gibbous, because again, waxing means it's getting lighter. So you go towards the full moon next. Full moon is fully lit up. and it's the full lit portion facing the Earth, and then it's going to reverse. So if you're looking down at this, now the left side from your perspective is lit up. So it's a waning gibbous, and there it is. You can see it's the same thing in reverse, but the dark portion now is on the right side, the lit portion is on the left. So don't get that mixed up when you're looking at this. Same thing with this one, last quarter. When you're looking down at that, the left side from your perspective is lit up. That's why it's a last quarter moon. And lastly, a waning crescent is a left side crescent. So you can see it's the same thing in mirror image, basically, between the waxing and waning phases in first quarter and last quarter. So don't get that mixed up. Make sure you guys understand that. And this goes around in a counterclockwise direction. So it will always be the same phases in this order. Just remember the position next to the sun is always a new moon, and then it goes around in that order counterclockwise. So I could change the side where the sun is, and it would just be the same thing in the opposite direction. Okay, now what other effects does the moon have on the Earth? The tidal cycle. All right, so you guys go down to the water, and you see sometimes the water is high, sometimes it's low. So this is caused by the moon positioning itself differently, and the cyclic rising and falling of the water and the levels of the ocean. It's caused by the moon's gravity and the sun's also. So it's kind of an interesting thing. It's not just the moon. It's like a tug of war between the two. And if you're a fisherman, you know this. The best time to go fishing is either on the new moon or full moon, because the sun and the moon are pulling in the same direction, the same plane. Even though it looks like they're fighting each other here, because of the Earth spinning on its axis, is an equal bulge on each side of the Earth. So no matter what, new moon and full moon, you're going to have stronger tides. And same thing with first quarter, last quarter, except it's the opposite. It's going to be a weaker tide, because first quarter you're going to be pulling this way, where the sun's pulling this, the moon's pulling this way, the sun's pulling 90 degrees from that. So the tidal bulges are smaller on the Earth during the first quarter and last quarter. All right, and also there are two high tides, two low tides almost a day. It's around 6 hours and 13 minutes approximately between tides, so a high tide to a low tide. And if you're going high tide to the next high tide, it will be 12 hours and 26 minutes. So to do the math. So if you do that, again, it won't get through 2 full high tides, 2 low tides a day, but pretty close. And there's 2 more links that I'm going to put in the description down below also for you. All right, now, also what happens with the moon and sun, you guys know, are what are called eclipses. All right, the first eclipse, more common, is the lunar eclipse. So what happens, the Earth blocks out the light from the sun during a full moon. And what you see, you don't see a fully darkened moon, because it's got to line up perfectly for that to happen. It never quite does it 100%. But you'll see like a reddish color on the moon. So it's definitely not getting its full amount of light, because the Earth is blocking out the full moon. So it has to be a full moon phase. It has to be perfectly lined up. That's why it doesn't happen on a monthly basis. But sometimes it will happen, like usually around twice a year or so. And that's what you can see all over the world. And again, weather conditions have to be perfect, and the timing also for you to see it. And the way you can remember that, sun, earth, moon, SEM. All right, that's for the lunar eclipse. So sun, earth, moon. And that's when you have the full moon. And lunar eclipse is an eclipse of the moon. So just remember, they ask you what's being eclipsed here. It is the moon. All right, now, this is the one you guys might have seen some summers back. This is called the solar eclipse. And it's when the moon passes in front of the sun during daytime. And if you're fully in the shadow, what you'll see is this right here, which is a darkened sun. All right, so the moon actually came right in front of the sun during the new moon phase, and all you see is the outer part of the sun, called the corona. And then down here, if you're in the partial part of the shadow, which is in gold here, that area you're going to see part of the sun being blocked out by the moon, not fully though. So you can see that happens on that, and that's what we had in our area a few summers back, that you guys may have seen. All right, you're not supposed to look at these directly. You can actually blind yourself with this sunlight skimming off the moon's surface and concentrated highly on your eye. It can happen about twice a year, but really specific where you are on the globe. So this is much rarer event to see. You might have to travel to go see one. And there is a moon song online, which again, I will put the link in the description. It's actually kind of fun, so I encourage you guys to listen to it. Thank you for tuning in, and hope you guys are doing well. Thanks. Bye.